welcome to round 1 with Eldrazi Evo. Just snap keep. We have 4 mana on turn 2. We get to like just Hierarch, Temple, Displacer, Path. This hand's just great. So, opponent is also playing Eldrazi with Endless One. I am not entirely sure what the implication of this is in terms of the rest of their deck at this point, but nice job against Displacer. We learned about this interaction back in True Eldrazi Winter. So I'm going to lead on Noble. It enables it. So usually the plan is you lead on Temple in a lot of these cases because it lets you draw, turn 2 Thought-Knots. You're like, I have the second Temple, or if you just have like Temple, Seer, other stuff. In case you just Mize and hit the Seer on 2, it's just great. But Noble still enables that and gives me a little more flexibility, with my 4 mana next turn. It's not 4 Eldrazi mana. I was describing this curve of these 5 cards being deployed by turn 2. So, take my damage, continue. Continue to take some minor amounts of damage. And my opponent appears to be mono-colorless Eldrazi at this point, I believe. And, Must continues to be just obviously the best. And so my opponent shows their hand, and they have 1 relevant card and all blanks, and are very unlucky that they won the die roll. This card having a luck counter is just the greatest thing ever. So my 4/4 is going to dominate this board for now, but my opponent uses their luck counter to draw a Thought-Knot Seer and cast it. So at this point, they end up taking the Displacer, and that's just kind of obvious because Displacer has both of these creatures on lock. I get to pay 3 mana to exile Scourge. That's just absurd. And then I have Endless One on lock via just exile it and it dies. And that lets me, they know about the path in my hand, so I can smash her in safely. It has 6 power, so there's no way my opponent can assemble blocks that actually kills it through a path. Just super straightforward. Well, their draw step was a Dismember. They drew fairly well, and I guess that's kind of only fair that, I draw Seer on 2 and they get paid off equally. They kill my Seer, leaving me with the best creature, and I'm just going to have to path their Seer on the attack here. We each got our free card out of that exchange. So at this point, I know they drew Seagate Wreckage off of that, which, might be a little obnoxious going along, but because I have Smasher and they're at low life because of the Dismember, I don't plan on going along. And they take care of a Eldrazi Temple there with the Ghost Quarter, but that actually kind of helps me because I'm looking to cast colored spells at this point. And so now with this Smasher attack, I'm not dead on the way back to a Smasher because that's only 12. In theory, I know they have Spirit Guide, Unknown card off the Relic draw, and if they drew I don't know, some removal spell I can't think of, if I just could randomly die to Smasher, there's just no way for that to happen. So I'm just gonna deploy the cards in my hand, which is just 2 voice because that lets me provide more potentially lethal attackers in the future. Their draw is Immutable, so I know their hand is question mark that they didn't cast. Can't be Dismember because they can't cast that one. And I'm in the clear to attack with everything, so basically, if this attack's just lethal because I can path whatever the Smasher gets blocked by to trample over. If they put 1 block on everything, this soaks up the same damage as if it blocks Smasher. This does, and then I can kill whatever blocks the Smasher, so it's just guaranteed lethal. Alpha goes through, some blocks happen. Here, just super minor, I exile the 2/2 Endless One because the trample is still lethal, and again, in case I just forget about something that, again, no idea what it would be, but forget about something random. targeting the Eternal Scourge would give my opponent back a 3/3, which is not what I want. And so, there's the lethal. Okay, so our main deck was actually pretty well set up for this mirror match. I mean, this is basically like colorless Eldrazi versus blue-white Eldrazi from Broken Era. So I opt to cut Spellskite. Didn't seem, I don't know how many removal spells my opponent can have, but it doesn't seem great. I'm not trying to redirect Walking Ballista or something. Gaddock Teague, a card I would like if my opponent was playing Eldrazi Tron, but they're just not. Got to shut off Karn somehow. Then Linvala didn't seem amazing, kind of clunky. I mean, I get flying's good, but whatever. And then I sideboarded in Deadeye Harpooner as removal. Things just like a random creature to hold the fort against like their Eternal Scourges or whatever. It's not even great. It probably doesn't need to be in, but I felt like it was a small upgrade here. And then Worship, which I have no idea how they beat. Just literally no clue. Kept in Solid Prime Mage as a hedge against random artifacts I forgot about. Welcome to game 2 of Eldrazi Evo versus colorless Eldrazi. Just going back in time to last February where everything's just completely busted. My opponent mulligan, but this looks fine, and they assemble the combo. As you can see, they have Serum Powder to dig for their Eldrazi temples, but when they exile Eternal Scourge, it's like they draw a card. Cute. Super cute. Yeah, my hand's just all mana, but it curves out Eldrazi, so whatever. And my opponent's mulligan doesn't look amazing just from that start. Lead on Temple, this is what I talked about last game, where if I draw another Temple, Mise must be. And they just have a Mimic. Playing the fast land because comes play untapped. I shouldn't have to explain that too much. And my opponent goes for a Spatial Contortion to get through a couple damage, and I flip a Cavern, at which point I have to go to my deck list and figure out what's even going on with my creature types, which are a giant disaster. I determined that next turn I'm going to be casting Thought-Knot Seer regardless, so I don't really need the mana. So the question is, in 2 turns, 3 turns, what do I want the mana for? And I named Angel so I could draw and cast Sigarda, and potentially have Path Up later. That's, I have a lot of, green and white mana, but that's the case where it could get strained. Taking my 2 damage beats. Here, I Seer before playing the land in case I need to leave a path. And I actually spent a little too long looking at this. I'm like, oh my gosh, do I remove all this? And then I realize my opponent has 2 lands and is very, very unlucky. So this Smasher is so far from becoming a card that I just don't care. I take Dismember so that my Seer sticks. Play my tap line. I don't need to path anything here. There's no way they can draw out of that like that. So my opponent Scourges and then no attacks. I think they messed that up. If they had attacked with this first, they would have gotten a free 2 damage because I didn't want to trade this for that and Contortion there. Second Seer seems like a pretty obvious play. I get to attack first because the reason I attack is not because I want to path to break the block, but because I'm fine with trading these 2 and then getting a Seer peek at the card they draw. And so here again, the Smasher is choked, and I want to take the Contortion and leave my opponent looking for my action. Because I spent some time on that, I just misclicked through a land drop, but not a huge deal, pretty far ahead. So Smasher comes down, and I get to pitch one of my lands to path it. I'm going to take the Mimic hit, but whatever. So Smasher down, and I opt to discard Brushland, which is actually a mistake because I'm on 2 colorless sources and can get Ghost Quarter down off colorless. I have just a million green-white sources I don't care about. So minor mistake there. And obviously the misclick land drop comes back to bite me because I'd be able to immediately like Finks up Sigarda, like Finks Evo to Sigarda or Gear Hulk or really whatever I want. So my opponent drops to 8. I Finks back up some life, play my fetch land. My opponent tries to stabilize the board with some dorks. Obviously doesn't want to trade 3-power creatures. And that is a decent one to draw. So I make a mistake here, a little bit of one, because I did not know the text on my card. I slam Gear Hulk, and then once it resolves, I realize that it is only you control. So I was thinking that I could exile Scourges by going like counter here, and then I'd re-up a counter here or whatever. Just that is not how that works. And I then make a slight follow-up mistake, 1/1/1 there, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm deploying my Displacer. There's not really a sweeper that can punish me for this much mana, especially because my permanents are mostly colorless. My opponent has all his dust in the Eldrazi Mirror. Super minor thing here on this Ghost Quarter. I get waste up front, but I think I'm supposed to get planes to bait the other Ghost Quarter activation. Because I feel like just like the way my opponent did that so aggressively, it felt like they were going to try to go for another Ghost Quarter. And, I'm getting punished for Brushland because I could have another colorless source. But if I get the planes, it assures that my opponent then goes after the cavern, and then I can get the waste. I fetch, and another slightly minor mistake here that I actually am just realizing now. If I pay the life here, my opponent can't Ghost Quarter on end step because I just get a planes, and then I get to flicker something with the Displacer. So this tapped is just wrong, actually. I didn't even think about that because Ghost Quarter putting me back up a mana if it kills the tapped cavern. I guess my opponent could kill my waste, though. Then I'd float. It would be the same thing. So yeah, I should have had the untapped Temple Garden there. And so we're now going to talk about how the Gear Hulk putting a counter on itself is kind of a mistake. I should have loaded up the Finks to a 4/4. That way, if any of these three creatures is unblocked, it's lethal by me flickering the Gear Hulk. But also, this attack is just lethal to begin with, so who's counting? Just to go through the math, they can block here, and then the biggest thing this can block is the 3. Yeah, or they can block here, block here. If they block the Gear Hulk to soak up 3, it deals 4 when it flickers. That's just also lethal. Yeah, it's just a million damage. This probably unnecessary, but pretty awesome. This card was pretty impressive. I did like how it really broke up the Thought-Knot Seer Smasher sizing there. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on at times with some of these cards, but welcome to Modern.